3 weeks later, many months later.
Good evening, y'all. I don't know what's going on. StreamYard tonight, but we going scratch. Okay, now I know what's going on. My foolish self had YouTube on in the background as well, so that's my fault. That is my fault. What is happening? Too much. Good evening. Welcome back to the Real Precious Network. We are back on the Adoptee Foster Show. We're going to have a quick one for you today. I do apologize about the intro. That was totally my fault. I had YouTube on in the background and I didn't know what was happening, what was going on. I heard an echo. So we're just going to take that. We're just going to take that away. But thank you guys so much for being here. We're going to get into the introductions and those who are joining. Definitely make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with a friend. You know, we are adoptee advocates. We say the uncomfortable things out loud, and it's not to, talk down on adoption or foster care or see it in a negative light. However, everything that we do in life, we should be prepared. We should be educated. We should be seeking more knowledge if it's something that we truly want to commit to. And so definitely share this live, share this channel. On Tuesday nights, we do the Adoptee Foster Show. And then on Wednesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, we do the Men's Forum. And so we will be live tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern with some spicy topics. But tonight, we're talking about adoption. All right, y'all. So I'll get to y'all in a second. But thank you so much for being here. Leon, how are you this fine evening, sir?
Hey, how's it going? Doing good.
All righty. It's Tuesday. We're almost there, Wednesday, middle of the week. And it's going to be very nice this weekend. So take advantage. Okay. Don't do nothing I wouldn't do no. I'm just kidding. Definitely.
I want to give a shout out. My sister is in the chat.
Okay. Sis is in the chat. Okay. Being in the chat. Look, it's a big thing when you have your siblings, biological siblings, watching and supporting you, because we all have a similar story. We are all a part of each other's story, and everything that you get, you should get understanding. Whether you agree, whether you don't agree, you should get understanding. So at least you know how to proceed on. And so I appreciate all those who are watching, especially sis. I hope you enjoy the show this evening. We're going to get into some things. And the biggest thing is what to expect when adopting, right? Have you guys ever seen those videos where it says like what to expect when expecting, right? What to expect when expecting. I don't think they have one, what to expect when adopting. So we're going to get into a little bit of that tonight. Some things we have spoken about before. I have 2 videos that I do want to share with a couple of supporting videos surrounding those main topics. But the first topic that I saw, we spoke a little bit about what they get into, but the second half of the video is where we'll get into conversation. But before we do that, I do want to shout out some of the folks that are watching that are engaging in the chat. Throw your questions in the chat, throw your, observations, throw your experiences, whatever you are comfortable with. I will drop the link in case someone wants to join the live. But we definitely appreciate the participation. You guys are what makes this show go far. We appreciate you for watching. We appreciate you for being here because you could be anywhere else. You could be asleep. laid up. But you're here and we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Fish in the Fit. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to you as well. 3 a.m. is showing some love in the chat. Definitely hit that like button. Hit that like button. I don't know who this is. Is that sis or no? Is that no?
No,
No, okay. But I
my
don't know.
sister is Tina in the chat. Her name is Tina Lanier in the chat.
Alua. Thank you so much. The like button on your way in. Thank you so much. They already know what to do when they come over here. They telling folks what to do. They're encouraging folks to let them know. Hit that like button when you come in. Hey sis, how you doing? Hey sis. Let me go out. Come back in, girl. Come back in. Come back in. Come back in.
She was saying that it was blank earlier.
Oh, because I stopped the intro probably.
Yeah, because I don't know, the intro seemed to like come in and then it skipped and then it just stopped.
That was my fault. That was my fault. I had to stop it. You know, I don't like confusion, right? I don't like confusion. We just going to stop it because we back here. All right. Y'all just see our faces a little faster. All right. I had to stop it. I had YouTube on in the background, didn't realize that I had the volume way up over there. So there was an echo and it,
okay.
It was a little crazy on this side. I'm like, what's happening? But thank you guys again so much for being here. Again, share the live, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, like, so this hits the algorithm in some way, some form. But the first video I wanted to get into, they're talking about, we talked about how foster care agencies will twist words and they will manipulate the truth in ways that allows a child to be taken from their birth parents. And in this video, there is talks of that, but it's the end of the video that gets me. And again, we're talking about what to expect when adopting. And before you can even think about the child, you have to think about the two people who are going to be committing themselves to this lifelong journey. So I'm going to put this up on the stage and we're going to get into it.
When they want a foster family to take the baby, they might withhold some information. That's the best way to put it.
Because they're just trying to get, because in their mind, they're like, I'm just trying to get this baby out of the situation.
Yes.
So if I have to withhold a little bit of information
or make it
seem a little better.
Yes. That's probably the better way to put it. They make it seem a little better
than what it was.
Yes. And so they were like, we have a 2-month-old baby. Well, she wasn't. She was 5 weeks. There's a difference in 2 months and 5 weeks. When they're at that age, there's a difference.
Yes.
And she has a broken leg. Well, she didn't just have a broken leg. And she's 10 pounds. Oh, gosh. I think she was 6'9".
Oh, my goodness.
She was little, like the birth weight.
Oh, my goodness.
And so I was like, but at the time I didn't know any of this.
Yeah.
So I was like, broken leg? Okay. 2 months? Like, okay. Like she's probably, and they're like, she's 10 pounds. And I'm like, okay. So my husband was not.
I know it was a lot going on. Okay. Look, all of that and a child need to be placed somewhere. It's like, dang, can the child catch a break?
Into it. He was.
Hold on. Let me rewind a little bit because we're about to get into the part I want to talk about.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was like, broken leg? Okay. 2 months? Like, okay. Like she's probably, and they're like, she's 10 pounds. And I'm like, okay. So my husband was not into it. He was in our garage. I had walked over. I said, well, let me check with my husband. I'd walked over to talk to my husband. He was like, no, we're taking a break. We're supposed to be going to your sister's house for Thanksgiving. I don't think we should do this. And I was like, oh, no, I think we really should. And so I really had to convince him to take her.
So they're being told false information about a foster child. The foster child had broke their leg, but not only was the foster child not the age that they told the parent or this foster mom, not only was she not the age, she wasn't the weight. And mom goes, let me ask my husband, like she about to buy a car or a huge purchase furniture store. Let me go consult with the husband real quick. And the husband says, I don't think this is a good idea. And what she said at the end was, her very last words were, I had to convince him. I had to convince him. Now, I believe there are a lot of things that you do have to compromise on within a relationship. But do you think bringing a child into your home is one of them? Like bringing a child into your home, not, oops, we didn't plan this, but we're going to keep going, even though that too, I don't necessarily know if that's a compromise or not, but at the same time, it's a natural biological child, so you don't really think about it the way that you do toward an adopted or foster child. But do you think that bringing a child into your home is a compromise that you should make when you're married?
That's not a car.
Look, we on the same page.
Hey,
We on the same page.
what are you talking about? Now, I do understand what he was saying about not, like it sounded like they were about to go on vacation, right?
Mhm.
So, like, let's talk about this after we come back. Maybe we can, maybe my mind will be refreshed. Maybe I'll have, different thoughts. Maybe my mind might be changed. If I spend time with family and I'll be like, oh, if they didn't have kids, maybe he would be like, oh, maybe, I might have a change of heart, right? But like trying to convince me is like you're trying to convince me to apply for this credit card that I don't really need.
Right.
What's going on? G Rap and Black Couch. Yeah, I mean, this is something you really have to be on the same page with your partner or your spouse. Um, because it's a lifelong decision that, it just don't stop at 18. Like it's a decision that has to be made that both of you can agree on and that you're going to commit to. It's like marriage. It's like you got to be committed. Like it's not. This ain't no 18 and you get out the house and forget about it. Like I think a husband was in the right mindset. If he didn't really want to do it, he shouldn't have. I understand. He probably was like, maybe I want to maybe I want to give it to her, maybe I want to concede or like agree with her just so I don't mess up our relationship. But you're going down a rabbit hole that that ain't gonna ever end.
Right. Because
It's
children really make relationships better.
I mean,
Is that a thing? I don't think. I think it's just like adoption. Our lives aren't better because we were adopted. They are different.
mhm.
And in some cases, your life can be better. You can have a better quality of life. However, it's different. It's different now. It's just different. And I think that with women, and I don't know her, personal life. I don't know if they're just parents who are foster parents and have their house open to parent. I don't know if she cannot have children and conceive the natural way. I
Right.
don't necessarily know her predicament in this. But when you say you have to convince your husband, I think you're already starting out in the negative on being aligned and on something that you both should wholeheartedly agree upon. I
Mhm.
don't you should look, it's men popping out children every day. They don't want to be there. Okay. Ain't no convincing, ain't no asking, they out. Okay. So to ask a man, I bet you if I was to walk down a block in New York, right, and mic'd up and said, "Hey, would you adopt a child?"
You should do that.
I should. We
Street
should.
Street View.
Street View, right? Like, just go out and just ask people would they adopt a child. I'm pretty sure we would get some very colorful answers. However, I personally believe, and maybe I should, try to prove myself wrong, but I personally believe that most people wouldn't do it. Most people who don't have the education, most people who, just don't want children, most people who just aren't open to bringing someone else's children into their home, right? It
Because
could,
there's a stigma behind adopting children at certain ages. Um, like, I don't know if I asked you, did you see that movie Adopted on Tubi?
I watch
It's
a
a 1 and 2.
Oh yes. So I seen one with a little boy, right?
Yes,
I didn't
yes,
see
yes.
two. I think two he became a terror, right? Yeah, my
More ways than one.
yeah, to watch too.
So it's a stigma like that kind of movie, right? Like where the kid is just a terrorist, like, just causing you problems every minute of the day, like you get no breaks. But that's not the case. Like everybody isn't like that. Like I know that you said that you may have had some anger or frustrations. But that's I think that's normal based off of where you were.
Mhm.
My situation was different. I didn't know any better, when I was growing up, you know, like I said, I don't really remember anything past under 5. So when I was growing up, it was like it was just, you know, it was really
What it was.
my parents were taking care of me, and those were my parents until I found out I was adopted. Then, that changed the story. So,
Mhm.
and that's what I think a lot of people have to look at when they are adopting children, is because um, like it's people finding out that they were adopted when they over 40, 50 years old.
That's crazy.
Like you've been living they've been living a lie their whole life.
We talked
And
about that last week.
hmm and the parents, and I think you said this a few times, that like a lot of people, they wait until their adopted parents pass away so they can actually
Go look.
go look, which that's that's pretty bad if you think about it. That's like just waiting for them to perish so you can actually figure out where your life, or try to connect with people. And the older you get, the harder it gets to locate people, and especially depending on how old your parents were, if they are or not deceased. Um, in my case, we're actually going through this right now where people, you're reaching out to them, they just leave you on red, so like it's it's a dynamic that I think a lot of people don't really understand until you really get into it.
Yeah. That's why we always encourage people to watch these lives, share them, participate, engage, because
Hmm.
it's the twilight zone, like you always call
Oh
it, right?
yeah.
Twilight zone. If you are not someone who's actually gone through it, because on the outside, it's okay. You got adopted. You got a better quality of life. You should be happy. You should be glad. You should be grateful. And I always say with adoption, the duality in adoption leaves us dead smack in the middle, right? It leaves us dead smack in the middle of being grateful, but also grieving,
Hmm.
being grateful, but also the unknowing, being grateful and also adapting, but still trying to figure out who you are so you can be real with yourself. I always say be real with yourself so you can be real with everybody else. Y'all know that's my line. That's my line. It's going to be my line to the end of time. Okay. Be real with yourself so you can be real with everybody else. And being in the dead center of losing and gaining, it's okay, who am I? But before we get to that point, bringing someone into your home and that not being a decision that both individuals in the relationship are dead set on committing themselves to, only sets you up for more issues down the line, because
Mhm.
there will be some resentment. Now, the biggest reason why, parents fear adopting or fear bringing children into their home is because they fear there will not be any bonding with the child, right? They worry about the trauma and the behavioral challenges. The fear of not bonding with the child, I believe, is a natural fear. That's a fear that comes from, this child didn't come from me, so how are we going to bond? And I think that a lot of adoption agencies, and we talk about this all the time, but a lot of adoption agencies will give you the very bare minimum, preparation for that. Get them involved, make sure they're busy, make sure because a lot of times, like myself, I was born to a drug addicted mother, right? So
Mhm.
we had those tendencies of withdrawals in us, and not when we were adopted, because I was 9 when I was adopted, but
Mhm.
as a baby growing up, before I was adopted, I was placed in a few different homes, and so the want to be alone or secluded was always inside of me. It took the last foster care home for me to like really enjoy life and love where I was, and didn't have a care in the world. I was outside playing with friends and going to school and things of that nature. But when I got adopted, I always remember my mom saying, she is just like, she don't want to connect with us. Like, she doesn't, that bond is just not there. And I didn't know how to fake that bond. I didn't know how to grow that bond. I didn't know how to lean into the new situation that I was in a home that, I'm going to be in for the next some odd years. And that was a hard concept for my parents, as well as a hard concept for me, because it's like, okay, how do we bridge the gap? How do we bridge that gap? And so not being able to bond is one of the main reasons, or one of the main fears of why people do not adopt, why people do not even bring children into their home to foster them, because how am
Mhm.
I going to connect with this child that is a total stranger to me? The second biggest reason is behavioral and trauma. A lot of people feel as though, I don't know what happened to them kids before they got here, but I ain't dealing with all that. I'm not unraveling, what happened. I don't want to get into it. I don't want I don't want it to bleed over into our lives. We already have a routine. God forbid they already have biological children. That
Right.
is another fear that parents had, where it's just like, I just don't want to get involved in all of that. And those things are valid. Those things are valid, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible to adopt. It means that, well, maybe you need to sit with adoptees. Maybe you need to go to some training courses. Maybe you should go to trauma therapy. The partner that needs to be convinced, I don't think that they should be convinced or coerced. I think that it should be something that you do together. If you have to be convinced, then I shouldn't even be asking you. I shouldn't be trying to get you to go down this path with me. I think that in a relationship, people have to have the same values. And I think that raising children, you got to have some values, in order to do it, especially adopting them, children that are not yours. Again, you have your own kids. Look, they in the family now, like, but those who adopt, you're making a conscious decision
Mhm.
to raise children who are not biologically yours. And so I think that, there should be no convincing. It should be something you wholeheartedly want to do, the both of you. And if you're trying to convince, stop, pause, don't continue to ask, beg, convince. That's not the thing. If anything, educate and get educated together. If anything, go to trauma therapy and either do it individually or go together. Prep yourselves as people, because parents are people. Parent is a title, but you're a person before you're a parent. And I think that's another thing when, what to expect when adopting. You have to expect to be a person, not just a parent. And within being a person, that means personal development. And if you're not going to get the personal development, why be a parent? For what? We're not cactuses. You can't just put us in a corner and, be like, "Ooh, I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to put it over there because it look all right with the aesthetic." Like, no. There has to be some type of personal development. And a lot of men feel as though they don't have the personal development to bestow upon a child that is not theirs. A lot of men take their lineage very seriously. They want their son or they want their little girl. They want that daddy's girl. They take that very seriously. And I think when it comes to adopting, it shouldn't be something that a man has to be convinced to do, because at some point that man is going to feel like you impeded on, his life. And he feels like he has to bow to you, or there are women who can't do it naturally. And so this could be his gift to you. Children aren't gifts to other people. You don't give a child as a gift. you don't I might give you your favorite pair of pants or a nice pair of shoes, but a purse, but not a child. That's not a child is not, we're gifts, we're God's gifts. We're not gifts to other people.
So I was going to ask you, what part do you think is harder, dealing with the behavioral issues or trying to connect with somebody that you just adopted?
Well, I think that dealing with the behavioral issues is probably harder. And I say that because people don't connect, one, either because they don't connect to anyone in their life. I mean, again, parents are people, right? And so if connecting is a choice. Connecting is a true choice. When I go to the grocery store and the lady who's ringing me up, I like her earrings, and I'm like, "Oh, girl, I love your earrings." That's connecting. That's part of who I am. I love to connect with people because, the Bible says you could be entertaining an angel. I believe that. The people that I have connected with in my life, there are some of them I didn't know from a can of paint, but helped me tremendously in my life. Like if it wasn't for them, some certain things wouldn't have happened, right? And so connecting is a choice. So do I think that is hard? I think it's hard when you choose not to do it. It takes nothing for us to connect with other people. We're supposed to do that. We're supposed to connect to others. We're supposed to help our neighbors. We're supposed to serve others. I think the hard part does come into, the behavioral part of it, because I grew up in a home, in my adopted home, where you do something bad, you're on punishment. That's it, and that's all. That's it, and that's all. You do something bad, you're on punishment. I remember being on punishment a lot. Okay. I remember facing the wall a lot. I remember writing Bible scriptures a lot. I remember doing those things a lot. And I think it was because there was an issue with the connection. And you can't look at children like, oh, they're well behaved, they're bad behaved. There is no good and bad. There is just behavior. And again, if you are not educated on, if you don't go to a child psychologist, if you don't seek out the knowledge, if you don't, talk to other people who are in the community and see what they're going through and how they're handling it and how they're going through their journey, it is going to be hard to disconnect the behavior from the child. Because you're going to think, oh, this child is bad. And it's like, no, this child's been through some bad things. And we have to pause for the cause, right? We have to sit in it with them. But if you don't choose to connect, then you're definitely not going to be able to get to the behavior. You're never going to feel as though you can rise to that occasion, because you haven't even got the connecting part down. And the connection is what's going to make those behaviors, few and far between. Because that's what children want to do. We want to connect when a woman has a baby, the doctor literally pops your boob in the baby's mouth. Like, y'all need to connect. There's no time for non-connection,
Mhm.
and even if you can't do that, you're still having, because some women don't breastfeed. So you're still laying the child on your chest. You're still having, that chest to chest or that skin to skin contact. They encourage the same thing for men. Just because y'all didn't have the babies, you still made them connect. Lay the baby on your chest, rub them. The baby not you're not going to drop it. Sit down. So the connection part of it honestly solves a lot of issues. But if that's not who you are, or if those are not the seeds that you're sowing, you can't expect this child to connect to you, and they don't even know you. They don't know nothing about you. They have to now adapt to who you are. And so I think the behavioral part is hard when you don't have the connection part.
I agree. And I guess, when I look at, how my parents raised me and how you know, I guess people get put on punishment in different ways. Like my mother, she spanked my leg. My father, he pull out the belt. So it's different. It's different ways to when you look at it. And I guess, you know, I just got blessed with like a mother who was just amazing. Like I can't explain it any other way. Like even as an adult, like when I was, and I knew like as I got older, like my mom, she was retired. So, and I knew that like I couldn't depend on her as an adult. Like I had to make my own decisions, right? Like I didn't want to be like dependent on my mom every time I got, every time I needed something, I was contacting her,
Mhm.
But, there were times, there are times you need help.
Yeah.
There are times when you have to ask for help. So, um, but also, I knew the steps that they took that I would be okay, once they transitioned. It's hard when they transition,
Mhm.
obviously, but when you can stand on your own and you know why you're standing on your own, you know, just like your parents put you in a position to succeed. And that's really what you're looking for. You're looking for, when people are trying to adopt and they are wanting to help a child become something that will be productive, will be, you could look back and like, oh man, I remember when, I remember this or I remember that. And so when you're looking at the outlook of how people connect with one another, I'm the same way. Like if I'm in the store, um, and I see like, I like when I first moved here, when I first moved to Maryland, I seen a guy. He had a nice cut. I was like, "Hey, man, that's a nice cut. Where you get your haircut at?" He was telling me, and I was like, "Oh, So just like you said, connecting with people in ways where it don't come off weird. Where you're not trying to where they not looking at you crazy. But I enjoy connecting with people also, especially since I started doing the podcast.
I think that that's a natural switch for those who are in foster care and those who are adopted. We the need and the want to connect is we're naturally wired to be
Mhm.
that way. And in part, that's from being disconnected, right? We're disconnected and we just want to be connected again. Like we really just want to be connected again. That doesn't necessarily mean we want to be connected with our birth parents. Doesn't necessarily mean that we want to be connected with a whole bunch of friends or acquaintances or even our adoptive parents. It means that we want to be able to connect with those who are able to see us for just being us. Right? We don't want to have to perform. We don't want to have to, because when you were adopted as a son, you were expected to be a son. And then it's like, okay, well, now I'm a son, but when am I Leon? And I can't really speak for you, so I'm gonna just speak for me. I was adopted as a daughter and I was expected to be a daughter, but there were things that were showing me where it's just like, okay, you need to be our daughter. You need to be our daughter. We didn't ask for Michelle. We asked for a daughter. And sometimes that's how it came off, and so connecting was always, it's like, okay, how can I connect and still be myself? Because I feel like being myself is actually tearing the connection apart. But is that my fault? Connection is a part of who we are as people. We get disconnected and we want to get connected again. And honestly, the people that we connect with the best are the people that really don't ask anything of us. It's like, you cool, I'm cool. We're able to have conversation. You're not asking me for nothing. I'm not asking you for nothing. It's just, we just good when we link up, right? And so, we're wired for that. And I think that is something that parents should definitely expect for your child to want to connect. But if they look like they don't want to connect, know that something is there's an underlying layer there of why the emotion is coming out as I don't want to. It could be I don't feel safe enough to. I don't feel like this is an environment where I can. And so, that is the parents that has a lot to do with parental compassion and being able to help you explore who you are through this journey called adoption and foster care. So I want to play this video. This is a child psychologist. She is also a doctor. She calls herself kind of like the parent whisperer.
Life, the way that we make sense of our world is through our senses. I want to feel you. That's why we recommend kangaroo care. And as soon as that baby is born, that it's with their big people. Second year of life, they make sense of it through being the same as. If you have a little bit of a spicy vocabulary, you will start to see that they start to mimic you.
Like a snowman.
What?
It's kidding.
They want to be like you. Year 3.
Why she say I'm kidding? Like she was like 25. like my.
They want to have a sense of belonging and loyalty. They want to know who their family is. How do we do it in our family? If any of you ever had children who are around age 3 and then you decided to have another child.
You see her here?
Year 4, I want to know that I matter. They draw you all the pictures. They make you watch their little dance performances like 52 times in a day. Did I do good? Do you want to see it again? Looking for that reinforcement that they matter and they're significant to you. Year 5, this is the year of love. It's not actually before year 5 that a child understands that feeling of what it is to be loved and in turn to offer that back to somebody. And you would think that with the onset of that experience of love, we are done, but that is not true. Because in year 6, it goes one layer deeper. I don't want to be just loved. I want to be known. That you can know all of those things about me, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that you will love me all the same. If that
I'm gonna love you anyway.
that can happen, then the child heads out into the world with no problematic programs on board, and they have nothing holding them back in any of that because they actually have a belief that they are good enough and they are worthy and they don't have to work to receive anybody's love. They just get to have that flowing naturally because they have a heart in their body that beats. Imagine what it looks like when they become a grown-up. When you look back retrospectively, what were those first 6 years like for you? Do you have the experience of feeling like you were really seen and really heard? Or do you have a different kind of experience? When you're a child, the environment creates your mind. And when you're an adult, the mind created for you in that childhood, it now creates your environment.
Wow.
I love her. She's
You know,
Vanessa.
when I hear stuff like this, it's it just validates like a lot of emotions and things that you feel or that you had, but you didn't know how to put them into words, or you didn't know, that's like when I'm reading these books and I'm thinking back on like about the situations, you don't know that's what you're going through. But like when you hear somebody talk, when you hear somebody speak about it, or when you read these kind of content, it makes sense, right? Like, so when you think about, like, I've been talking about all the time, like when you look back on your life and you think about all the time your parents told you no, and how you felt in that moment. You're pissed because you can't go to a party, or you can't, they won't buy you this dress, or they won't buy you some shoes or a backpack. But those moments are building the building blocks into your life, because they probably could have got it for you. I'm sure they could afford it, but if they keep telling, like, when you don't get everything you want, it makes you appreciate it more. And I'm pretty sure you're probably the same way with your daughter. I don't. Do you give her everything she wants, or do you tell her no?
I don't. I don't give her everything that she wants. However, I consider her as a person, right? So it may be something. Oh, can I get this? No, not right now, but eventually.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I actually heard no way more than I heard yes. I heard no way more than I heard yes. And what it did was it turned me into someone that would just do it I'll just do it myself. That's what it turned me into. It turned me into I'll just do it myself. I remember the first instance probably was my hair, but I wasn't being told no. I just know my mom braided tight, y'all. It was just like, child, I gotta learn.
Had a headache for
I
2
gotta learn
months.
how to do this for myself. But I had every Hype Hair magazine edition. Like that was something that I liked. So I took, interest in it. And so I remember my mom saying, Dad, I don't have to do your hair anymore. Like that was like a moment for her where it was just like, we don't have that mother-daughter connection anymore. But the very first moment where it was just like, I'll just do it myself, was my phone. I was like, all right, I want to pay my own cell phone bill. Okay. These 60 minutes, 90 minutes, 20 text messages, I'm at a point in life where it's just like, it's just not going to work, And I'll never forget, we went to the phone store and I was like, Dad, just take me off the phone bill. I work now. I'll just pay my own phone bill. And from there, it turned me into someone where it's just like, asking you probably would be the last resort for me. I'm gonna figure out how I can get it done before I have to ask my parents, because I feel like if I ask my parents, it's gonna be no. And that's how, and I'm just being honest with y'all, I'm being real, right? However, it taught me how to be independent. It taught me how to, I left home around like 1920. Been living on my own since, never been on, out on the streets. It taught me how to be self-sufficient. But like you said, everyone needs help. I've asked my parents for help before, so it's not like they haven't helped me. I don't want to make it sound like they just have never been there for me, because they have. When I like truly needed it. But there were other times where I truly needed it, and I would have liked them to be there, and because of either beliefs or because of their strong nature of no, this is our answer, and but I definitely heard more. Like I never was I never was a daddy's girl, and I never was the girl that was just spoiled. I always say my daughter is a girly girl that I wanted to be when I was her age, because it just, I like to dance, I like to do hair. I was very, I like the artsy type of, thing. And it was just like, nope, you better get these A's and B's. You're gonna play this basketball. You're going, play this flute. I never forget, it was like, all right, get them involved in an instrument and music. Okay. So, when you're in elementary school, you play the manila flute, right? You everybody had to bring that little flute. Make sure you don't forget your flute, So when it was time to pick an instrument, it's like, oh, well, what do you want to play? I want to play the flute. I enjoy playing that little vanilla thing. I get to the City Music Center and they gave me a flute. And now I'm holding the flute like this. I'm like, that's not the flute. And they was like, yes, it is. That's a flute. And I'm like, well, what's the thing that we were playing in third grade, in second grade? What was that thing called? Well, it was called a flute. Somebody lying to me. Which one is the flute? Long story short, it was a clarinet. It was a clarinet that I really wanted. But my parents were like, nope, you got the flute. You're going to play the flute. And I'm like, but that's not what I wanted. Nope, you got the flute. You're going to play the flute. So there were just times and moments in my young adult life where it was just like the things that I truly wanted, or the things that I wanted to explore. It was just like, no, we're not doing that. So, do I give my daughter everything? No. But I also do take her being and who she is into consideration of why she may want the thing that she wants, or no, it's not going to be right now, but it could be at a later time when it's appropriate. I do take those things in consideration, and it could be because of me hearing no a lot more than I heard yes.
I mean, and that's a good way to answer it too. Not right now. Maybe at another time, instead of just flat out no. It's and at least gives her some glimmer of hope down the line. It's not like no, to stop asking, it's never gonna happen type of answer.
Yeah, and that's that. When I heard no, it was finite. Like it was like that's it. And I'm like, okay, so when you have a pattern of that, or if you come from a home, again, I told you I came from a home where it was just like, okay, if this is your behavior and you're doing these things, time out or punishment, or you got to sit in this secluded area. And I remember one time I had to eat clam chowder. I'm like, child, I have not eaten clam chowder since that night. And it's like, us as adopted kids, we want to be included. We need the connection. The more you push us away, the more we will stay away. But then there was a question of, well, why aren't we bonding? And it's like, as children, we're trying to figure it out. I told you before, I came from a different background than my brother came from as far as foster care. We weren't in foster care together, but we got adopted together. So we were two different children being adopted in the same home. However, I believe that, we weren't looked at as individuals. We were looked at as a package. These are our two kids. These are our children. And it's like, well, I'm a very different child than my brother. And that's going to take two different energies that you're going to have to pull from two different places. You're going to have to, see both of them as individuals, and consider each one separately. And so, that's a dynamic too that parents have to prepare for, and be able to, expect that both of your children, like Gabor Mate always says, your children experience you different. It's not if you love the daughter more, if you love the son more. No, the daughter experienced you in a different way than the son experienced you. And it doesn't mean that he loved the son anymore, or he loved the daughter any less. It means that their experience with the same person were two different experiences. And that's something that sometimes parents don't want to put out on the table. They don't want to be honest about, because if you ask a parent, oh, I love all my kids the same. Well, you may feel that way, but all your kids will probably have a different story on how they experience you as a parent. And, you have
Mhm.
to hold space for feedback when your children are being open about what their experience was with you. And that comes in again, like you said, you don't realize how your feelings can be put into words until you hear someone say the words or until you actually read it on paper. That's why I love reading and writing, because it's a personal thing, right? You're able to read this book and be like, wow, the book is reading you. That's what they say the Bible's supposed to do. Like, you're supposed to read the Bible, but the Bible's supposed to read you. Well, for us
Mhm.
who are adoptees, when we read adoptee material, it actually reads us because it's able to put into words things that have been floating around in our minds forever. And not only adoptees, if adoptive parents were to read adoptee literature or adoptive literature, it would read them as well. And it would stop them in their tracks. And hopefully, it would cause them to pause for the cause, to say, you know what? I never thought about it that way. Or, you know what? Where is my highlighter? I got to get this page right here. I got to work on this one.
Mhm.
It's like it's dead right in your face. And you can't unsee what you see. You can't unhear what you hear. I believe that's why our gateways to our souls, our eyes, our ears, the things that you watch all the time, the things that you read all the time, the things that you listen to all the time. It's important. Now, that's one thing that was taught in my home. My parents had protective. You can't get this channel. You got Disney, Nick at Night, Nickelodeon. You ain't even getting no BET. Because they be uncut on there sometimes. The game channel. It was very important what we put into, what I wasn't exposed to a lot of things until I got to like college. So it was very important, and I do believe that's one value that my parents have instilled in me. Like, I have to be careful with what I watch. I have to be careful with what I listen to, because if you do enough of the right thing, it'll get you going in the right direction. It'll get you.
Mhm.
That's why they say, post um inspirational things, or read it on the go, have these things available, because it does help your attitude. It does help your your whole demeanor. You could be having a bad day, but if you read something over and over and over again, it will change your psyche. It will permeate into your everyday structure, if you let it. That's another thing. People just be stubborn. But this adoptee literature, these adoptee videos, this environment, this community does, or it should allow someone to say, you know what? I could point the finger all day, but how many more are pointing back at me? My mom always said, you point the finger at somebody else, how many do you have pointing back at you? So we always should take the opportunity to seek and to learn and to educate ourselves. And just like that literature be reading us, it can do the same for adoptive parents, and not to shed the negative. Okay. Again, I would never tell someone not to adopt a child. I would say educate yourself.
Mhm.
Surround yourself with those who are going through the same thing as you. We would tell any parent would tell a child that, on a you want to be a basketball player, go hang out with the guys who play basketball, go to the training camps, go to the meetups, and make sure you're present at everything that a parent would tell a child. We as adoptees feel as though we turn around and tell the parents that, because
Mhm.
sometimes parents have this fairy tale version, or it's been done in our family so long like this, or we already have our routines and how we do things. We're going to watch another video of a woman say, well, I thought it was going to be easy. You seem like the best kid at the orphanage, and then you got home and you just switched it up. What happened? So those things that our parents would teach us and tell us, or any parent would tell someone who's looking to embark on a new journey and be better at something that they want to accomplish in life. Put yourself around those people. It's the same thing with the adoption community. But I don't think that adoptive parents immerse themselves in the adoption community as much as they should, because a lot of the challenges that you face can, be solved probably quicker if you were actively seeking the help and the knowledge and the training and the therapy that would help you again develop as a person, which would then help you develop as a parent. We can't do nothing as a parent if we don't do nothing as a person. It's just not gonna work. It ain't gonna work. You could dress it up, dress it down. But once you take all the clothes off, you're gonna still be a person before you're a parent. And so we have to be able to develop our person before we develop our parent. I'm gonna get to some of these
Questions, comments.
questions, comments. Let me see. Yes, educate, be informed, consider all avenues. Yes. You can't convince or change anyone's mind. That applies to anything, not just personal relationships. I agree. You can't convince somebody to be a parent now. You can't convince them to change their whole lives because you want that outcome. How can you connect with a child without therapy and working on healing for bonding? It's impossible. And I wouldn't say that it's impossible, right? Because sometimes we get away from the simple things. Sometimes we get away from, just being present. Just being present is bonding. You mind if I sit with you for a little bit? We don't have to talk. We can just watch TV. You can play your game. I can sit here and knit or crochet or whatever the case may be. I can fold the clothes, the laundry. I just want to be around you. Like, I just want us to be in the same room. If you need me, let me know. If you got your headphones on, that's cool. I just want to be in the same room with you. Can we go take a drive? You want me to take you to the store? Or, I think sometimes we get away from the simplicity of presence. And, it don't take therapy or it doesn't take that to just show up. But I do think it does take therapy, again, to develop the person in order for them to be a better parent. But us as people, we are wired to connect with other people. I think that people choose to not do it for so long because of hurt, because of trauma, because of pain, that's what comes out of them. You can only give what you have. And when people are not giving you connection, they don't have it. And there's a reason why they don't have it. And it's a reason why they're not choosing it, because after a certain point in life, you choose. No one's choosing anything for you. You are doing the choosing. And so, I think that it's definitely possible, but it's something that we have to actively work on, just like active listening, where you literally just sit there, and then, okay, so what I hear you saying is that's actively listening, being able to, being present. Remember when you was listening to your music and I was just in there folding clothes? I actually enjoyed that time. It was very peaceful. You have to draw your child into a peaceful environment. You have to create that peaceful environment. And honestly, we are human beings, right? Not humans doing. We don't always have to do something for someone else for them to feel comfortable. Sometimes you just have to be. And that is something that a lot of people struggle with. Precious, I commend you for voicing your truth on adoption and being honest with your ongoing experience with feelings toward your adoptive family. Yeah, and I'm not saying anything to, make my family look bad or anything. I'm just saying things that are real to my story, because you can't heal what you don't reveal, right? You can't be able to have these conversations if you're not able to say the uncomfortable things. And I think that the uncomfortable things do need to be said so other people can, feel easy about the unease that they've experienced in their, situations as well. They want that validation. Yes, children definitely want that validation. And what's crazy is the adoptive parents want the validation as well. But, children don't really validate their parents. I think that's something that probably comes a lot later, when you can understand the depth of their parenting and their sacrifices and things of that nature. And so parents always have to be the initiator of that validation. It starts in the womb with the development of child's mental health. The mother can pass on anxiety to a child in the womb. People don't realize this. Childhood psychology is so important. Yes. If you are, if you want to parent, definitely look, you don't even got to pay for it nowadays. You can just go right to YouTube University, right? Child psychologies. Watch some of these. And again, I wanted to be a teacher. And so a lot of my studying is surrounded by child psychology. And a lot of this, came to, talk about the fog, right? We talked about the fog. We did part 2 of the fog last week.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of my fog, I was, getting a lot of clarity when I was in my college courses. When I was sitting there, it was more than just an assignment to me. It was just like amazement to me to learn a lot of things that children go through that I didn't necessarily go through. We just played that video of Dr. Vanessa saying the different stages 0 to 6. And her question was, how were those stages for you? Well, from 0 to 6, by 6 years old, I was already in 3 different homes. And so you talk about wanting to be known and loving and, the touch and all. You got to redo that every single time you go to a different home. And so those stages for me were just so up and down and so, high mountaintop, then low valley. We go through those emotions not knowing how to go through them and leaning on those who committed to taking care of us to get us through that journey safely. And sometimes it's like you're going around the edge and it's like, all right, now we go we gonna run this edge. Don't let me fall off. Okay. So yeah, it's definitely a journey.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about like reading that primal womb book, like what you just said earlier, it's like you don't realize a lot of the stuff that you went through, or you don't know that you're going through that. But like when I was reading it, I was really getting clarity. Like I was really getting understanding of those emotions. But you're 6, 7 years old. You don't know that's what was happening.
I didn't know I was going through the adoption process, child. I thought, like I said, I thought I was just going to a picnic where there was going to be food, music, and sunshine. And I was just going to go back home, and that was just going to be the day. Not knowing that that was the beginning of my life changing forever.
Mm-hmm.
You're literally doing what adults tell you to. You're getting in the car and you're putting on your seatbelt and you're going from destination to destination, not knowing that one day your life is not going to look the same as it did yesterday. And that is a huge, like when you talk about what to expect, you have to expect for your child to it's like a heart-wrenching, like they say that divorce is heart-wrenching because you're separating worlds, right? When I know women be throwing divorce parties, but y'all know y'all be hurt. Don't be lying. Okay, you went through that grief period, right? And it's the same way with children who are adopted and taken from a birth family or a foster family that they love. It's heart-wrenching. It's the gnashing of teeth because you're literally separating the bond of someone that you have, enmeshed yourself with. And so you have to expect that there will be behavioral issues. I will be angry. I will be mad. This will not feel normal to me, right? So those are things you should expect. But how are you educating yourself to be able to hold space for that child when those emotions come up, when those behaviors come up? There's a lot of kids that go to detention centers. They're not even put in foster homes. They're not adopted. They send these children who have these behavioral issues to detention centers. They might send you to a psych ward and put you on medicine, when the child really needs someone to connect with them and hold space for those emotions that they're going through. that nobody understands because you're just working a job and you're just part of this system and you've never been taken from your biological family or put in a home. You know, it's like me going to my neighbor's house and be like, let me check your kids real quick and have them for 25 years. You'd be like, wait, what? That child would be like, who are you? You know, so expect that those behavioral issues and that trauma should be expected, but the child is also expecting you to make it a safe space for them. And they're not going to tell you, they're not going to say that to you. They're not going to say, make it safe here for me. They're not going to say, oh, I don't trust this environment. No, their behaviors are going to do that. And parents can't see it as children trying to be rebellious or children trying to act out or they're just bad or no, their nervous system is screaming, something is going on here and I can't make sense of it. I can't make sense of it. And so children do what children do, and they look to their parents to make sense of it. But when it's not making sense on that end either, they don't know what to do then.
Yeah, especially I think some people have like they just have that knack. They just have that skill. Like they can, you know, not even like my parents, like people that I grew up around, like my friends and stuff, their parents, like their parents were just they knew when something was wrong or they knew, like when they needed to step in or they needed to get help, from another neighbor. So like I'm not saying like parenting, but I'm just saying like they can tell when things are they just got that, it's just inside them that feeling, that instinct, and some people have it and some people don't. Like it's just um, you know, like I told you, my mom told me that I couldn't go to a party. Kind of find out, party got shot up.
Mm.
I was mad at the moment, but the outcome, it saved me.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at it like that, it's the same thing. Like you said, like I used to spend all that quiet time or that time with my parents. Like, I'm little. I can't cut the grass, but I'm out there with my dad watching. He was like, "Come on, push the lawnmower." I can't put, I'm not big enough to push a lawnmower. But the point is, like you said, being in those spaces. I would go in the kitchen and just sit while my mom would be listening to the old school jams. And she cooking, and she like, you wanna help me make some cake? I'm like, yeah. She'll give me the little mixer, and it just like you said, it's subtle things that don't take money. It takes attention, it takes awareness, and it takes effort.
Yeah.
And um, if they're not giving you effort, it can be tough.
Yeah, and it takes openness, right? It takes openness. Yeah, I mean, that's what you're doing. If
Mm.
you're going to open your house, open your heart. Okay, like you can't have one without the other. You can't have a closed house. I mean, you can't have an open house and a closed heart. They just don't
Mhm.
go hand in hand. It just doesn't work. So you have to be able to be open to the possibility that you don't know not now one answer to the test, not now one, like Trina said, not now one answer to the test. Okay, you can't go in there thinking you got all the answers to the test because sadly mistaken, you are wrong.
Mhm.
You do not have all the answers to the test. Um, and no one does. None of us have arrived. None of us have come to this level where we are at all knowing, knowledge. No, we are all still learning, no matter what field or subject matter it is, we're all still learning. But
Mhm.
you're going to expect to adopt, you have to go in knowing that you know nothing. And that you need to learn. You better learn you something, right? That's what they said back in the day. You better learn you something. With adopting a child, you better learn you something. And it doesn't always mean textbook answers. Learn your child. Learn the child that you chose to adopt. Have an open heart for the child that you chose to adopt, because that is the only way that connection is going to happen. And parents are in charge of that. That is a huge feat. Well, I like to connect. So, I'm not going to say it wouldn't be hard for me, but it probably would be hard for me to adopt a child and do something that I've never done before, even though I was an adopted child, right? I know that closeness is something that the child is going to require, but I'm not going to know how to do that until I meet that child, until I spend time with that child. It is a very hands-on, you'll hear the husband in this next video say it. It's a very hands-on experience. You're not going to have the answers, because you're not going to have, that child until you have that child. Even before adopted, I know parents get excited and it's like, oh, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to do this. And that child will give you a run for your money. And now this fantasy that you had of this child is now skewed. Your vision is now blurry. And it's like, I don't know about him. He gives us more issues than I want to admit, but we already committed, so some people do realize after a while that they're in too deep, and some give up and some keep trying. And it's a daily practice. You have a lot of children who run away from their adoptive homes, or there are people who are adopted multiple times. I didn't even know that could happen. Like, when did divorce happen? Like, when did y'all break up? Like, I didn't even know that could happen. I actually have a sister who was adopted, and the courts cut off the rights of her adoptive parents, and now her current mother got her through guardianship. So, like, I'm like, well, what happened? Like, but that's her story to tell. But there's so many, things that can happen, that we always say that adoption is final, but honestly, it's really not. It's really not. We have been adopted and we have grown into successful people and things of that nature, but life could have been different if we would have did it differently. Like what if we would have ran away when we were in our teens? Then what? They're going to put us back in the system, what our parents are going to say. Like, it can go so many different ways. It's not one size fits all thing with adoption and foster care. But again, all of this does stem from how are you showing up for those behavioral traumas, because they will arise. There's no way that they won't arise. At some point they will. They may show up early, they may not. A child may go their whole adolescent life being fine, and then they get into school and they're in health class learning a certain subject, and they're like, wait, hold up. I don't know this, or this is unfamiliar to me, or I don't know my family tree, or I don't know, like I don't know. Or
I used to hate that when we used to be in school, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, what is your background?" Or like, what where are you from? Where are your parents from? Where are your grandparents from? I'd be like, I don't know. They were like, what you mean?
And then you feel weird putting your adoptive family down, because it's like, yo, I ain't even known them a year yet. Like, I know they hold the title of mom and dad, but I didn't even know them a year yet. Like, what we doing? Like, it's a weird feeling. And it's like, it's not that you don't want to do it out of disrespect. It's not that at all. But it's like, we haven't even built this relationship, for me to feel comfortable repping you like that, and I'm just being honest, there's nothing bad about my parents, but it's just like, I don't know you. So I think that if you ask any adopted child, one of the things that get on their nerves about being adopted, that family tree will always be, a thing. If you ask foster care children, for me, it was always a black bag. Like, y'all just sent me on with a black bag, a black trash bag at that. Like, who the heck was in charge of that part of the project? Because they failed tremendously. Like, every single time I moved from a home, it was my belongings were in a black trash bag. And even at that time, I just thought in my head, like, okay, I guess, but y'all ain't got no better bags. Like,
can I get a suitcase?
Yeah. So there are little things that irk us, in the process, where it's just like, why is it like this, or why can't I make sense of what I'm feeling, and why do I feel guilty for voicing how I feel, and other people are making it seem like I'm wrong for feeling those feelings when they don't have to feel these feelings. So why are you questioning my feelings? uh, so we're often put in these positions where we don't speak and we don't say how we feel because it makes other people feel uncomfortable. And I think that is a large majority of the adoptee and foster care community, where it's just like, I'm just not going to say nothing, or I'm gonna just wait till they die, because they ain't got nothing to say 6 feet under. So I'm just going, for everybody to feel comfortable in this situation, and that shouldn't be the case. You should be real with yourself so you can be real with others. And if being real with yourself makes other people feel uncomfortable, I'm sorry, you have to honor yourself, because at the end of the day, you have to go to sleep with yourself. And you have to wake up for yourself, and you got to pay your bills yourself, and you got to be able to function in this world yourself. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that you're alone, but at the end of the day, if someone doesn't honor you for being you and making the decisions that you want to make that make you feel alive, are they really accepting you as a person? Do they really accept you as a person, or do they accept the benefit of who you are in their life as that person? As soon as you tell somebody no, believe me, I told you I heard no a lot. So, when you tell somebody no, I don't want to do X, Y, and Z, now it's like, oh, but you don't want to do this, you don't want to do that. And it's like, no, it just doesn't honor me. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't make me feel good. It doesn't, it's not pouring into me, the way that this experience may pour into you. And I'm done doing things for other people for you to feel emotionally well, when this same experience is draining me emotionally. Right. And so those are the imbalances that go on when you're adopted. And in foster, and it goes on in biological families. Folks don't want to go to the family function because it's like, y'all fail to see the truth about Uncle Scotty. Like, everybody know when he get there, he gonna drink. Everybody know there's probably gonna be a scene, but yet y'all still want to be around this person, right? You still want to enable this person or encourage this person, but it's not a good time for us. It may be a good time for y'all, but it's not a good time for us, right? And so, you have to do things that pour into you. And if that doesn't include people who may feel some type of way about you pouring into you, then you have to reevaluate your motives and why you do what you do. Because are you doing what you do to please others, or are you doing what you do to be true to yourself? And I think that a lot of times people are scared to be true to themselves. But when they see somebody else doing it, it's just like, oh my gosh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could tell so and so no. I wish I could just say I ain't coming. And it's like, you can. You most definitely can. But sometimes you do need, that example. You need someone to, be that trailblazer for themselves, so you know how to be for yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at how people, the negative stigma that adoption gets from, just for so long, a long time ago, where they don't want to adopt kids, especially older kids, because they deem them as troublemakers, or that they're going to disrupt like what they have going on in their house currently, So I think people just need to do their own research, um, really spend time, around people who are adopted. Like I said, you're the first person I met that was adopted, and I'm 48 years old. Something's wrong with that picture.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and I was really looking forward to going to that thing in Philly. I
That,
still think
yeah,
about that too.
I know.
Um, and so when you look at how some people grow up, it doesn't really matter, like, because there are people that have, that are not adopted, and like that I grew up around, and their families were just as dysfunctional as where you grew up. So like, I don't think that our stories are different, but the way that you grow up is different based off of your household.
Yeah. And it's also different based upon how again you choose to connect, because those in biological settings that stay with their parents and their biological family,
Hmm.
they may have the same struggles as us,
Hmm.
very very well so, but what they don't struggle with is a connection. They know where to draw their family back to. Meaning, if I'm having this, feeling within my immediate family, I'm gonna call cousin Tanya. I'm gonna call, whoever, and
Hmm.
we'll be able to connect, or we'll be able to talk about this, or we'll be able to have these deep conversations, even though our parents, don't want to see the truth, or whatever the case may be, right? We're able to connect on that level. When you're adopted, like I don't talk to a lot of my cousins like that. Immediate cousins, yes, but still no. Like we do make an effort to, like my parents, siblings, especially on my mom's side, a little bit on my dad's side, but we have a group chat and things of that nature. And did you wish grandma a happy birthday? And did y'all see X, Y, and Z? But it's not a constant type of communication. Um, However, when you're in your biological family, you don't have to worry about being judged about. You can be more open and free. Whereas when you're when you're adopted, it's like, oh, I don't want to talk, bad about so and so because, they didn't have to adopt me, and I don't know how so and so thinks about so and so, and like, what I mean, so many like little politics, and it's just like you just don't, like when I met my siblings and things like that, it was just like a freeness. Like when I met my biological father, it was a freeness where
Hmm.
it's just like, my biological father, I could tell him anything without feeling judged, without feeling like I know he's gonna keep it real with me. I know he's gonna, be like, oh no, you shouldn't be doing that. You should, or no, like that, follow your heart, or, really pour into me and not say things that I just want to hear. He's going to say
Hmm.
things that I need to hear. But there's a freeness there, a level of freedom that not a lot of adoptees feel like they have with their adopted family. You may have it with maybe your mom or your dad, but that doesn't really extend too far out in the family,
Hmm.
you know. And that's another thing that adoptees, we don't know what we're getting ourselves in, not getting ourselves into, but we don't know what we're facing when it comes to not only the family structure inside the house, but then outside the house, right? Like, okay, how is the other family going to look at me? Are the other cousins going to think that, I'm the favorite because I'm the new kid on the block, literally, it's like,
Oh.
are they going to embrace me? Am I going to be like one of the cuz like everybody else? Am I going to get the phone calls and the invitations like everybody else do? Or am I going to be the forgotten one because I wasn't really there, from the beginning?
Hmm.
So those are struggles and things that adoptees don't they probably won't bring those things up in their family because they don't already want to look like they already are in the other category, right? So they don't want to look
like on the application, you mark
right.
other.
They want to look like a big other, bringing these things to the light. And I believe that anything can be spoken about if you're open, to having those conversations. And a lot of times we have to not be offended. And I think that sometimes offense takes a huge stake in our daily walk. And I think in our being, especially those, you know, when you're a working parent, and I could say that both of my parents were working parents when we got adopted. Eventually, my mom became a stay-at-home mom, and I saw the difference in her temperament from when she worked as opposed to when she was a stay-at-home mom. And I know she felt it. She was able to, be calmer because she didn't have to rush out. Like my mom worked at night. I'm like, how you working at night? Overnight, we sleep. And we don't see you till the morning? Like what? So I know that had to, have a huge toll. And my mom's a night owl anyway, but I know that had to have a huge toll on her as a woman, as a female, now having these two kids. And it's like, you got to leave when they go on to bed. You got to go work. And then, by the time they go into school, you coming home and you going to sleep. And my dad is dropping us off at, like, you know what I mean? Like when you're a working parent, you lose that patience. You lose. I got backhanded a couple times. Like dang, like Jesus, that thing was quick. Like, it's like, you lose that patience. And it's just, it is a natural thing until you are able to take a step back again and pause and be present in the moment and say, okay, should I go off or should I just breathe, do a little breathing exercise, be present in the moment, be patient. And like I said, when she became a stay-at-home mom, I saw her, soften out. I saw her be able to, not be so quick with it, but yeah, I think all these things should be expected. But again, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. Just a lot of things I'll say till I'm blue in the face. Like early and often, tell your children they adopted early and often. That's something you'll always hear me say. You'll always hear me say, be real with yourself so you can be real with everybody else. But you'll also hear me say that again, before you are a parent, you're a person, and you have to get that self-development down. There's no age that where it's too late to start that. Anybody can start that at any age. A lot of parents, I think I failed my kids. I don't know. I just can't do it. And they just don't want to see me. And okay, you can turn that frown upside down real quick. But you have to have the willingness. You have to be open to want to step into that chapter of your life, because being open also is allowing yourself to be hurt too. And a lot of people don't want to just invite pain into their life. But what I say, joy and pain, like it go together. Sunshine and rain, it go together. Okay, get the peanut butter jelly sandwich. Okay, you can't just have the peanut butter, you can't just have the jelly. It go together, and you gotta be able to appreciate the flavors and all bring to the sandwich. Okay, and so that's what it is. A lot of people don't want to be open. Because when you're open, that gives an invitation for pain to be invited in. And we always say, nothing grows out of comfort. It's going to take a pain. It's like you going to the gym. How you want to go to the gym every day? Sweat, got the towel around your neck, legs hurting, arms hurting. Oh, that felt good. I know it hurt now, but I'm gonna look right. I'm gonna look fine. But you don't want to go through a little bit of emotional pain. That emotional pain seems like it hurts a little bit more than physical pain.
Yeah.
That was a rhetorical question. Yeah. It does though. I mean, we're just being honest, right? We're just being real. The emotional pain hurts worse than the physical. You'd rather feel that physical pain. You'd rather your muscles be aching right? And tell yourself that it's a good thing that they're aching, then say, you know what, we are having a little, distance in our relationship. And some people will say, you know what, I'm good with it. And some people will say, you know what, I don't like this. I don't like this disconnect. I like, what do I have to do different? Or, what can I do to make this better? That's that growth mindset I was talking about last week. The fixed mindset, they got their mind fixed. I am who I am. Take me as who I am. I know you was God. That's what God said. I am that I am. Okay. And us as humans, we have to realize that we have more room to grow because look, some of y'all mother's name probably was Mary, but it wasn't the Mary that had Jesus. Okay. Just saying. All right, we want to get to the next video. Then get out of here. So we have this mother, actually this couple who adopted a Haitian boy. So they're a white couple who adopted a Haitian little boy. And the mother is saying, I thought it was going to be easier.
I thought it was going to be easier.
Hold on. All right.
We got you home. I mean, I thought it was going to be so easy because Wilson's such a good kid, so well behaved at the orphanage, such a leader, so outgoing, and which you are.
What'd you say?
I still see the other lady. Oh, there it is now.
Do you see the other video now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start it over.
I thought it was going to be easier when we got you home. I mean, I thought it was going to be so easy because Wilson's such a good kid, so well behaved at the orphanage, such a leader, so outgoing, and which you are.
She named all the good qualities, right? He's such a leader. He's so outgoing at the orphanage. Mind you, it's an orphanage. I'm pretty sure everybody has some type of job, something. But look at his face here, right? Like, she's naming all the good things. And I know we're going to get to the thing that makes her uncomfortable.
You're very much a leader and very much outgoing. I didn't realize how hard it was going to be. Learning, you had to unlearn the 10 and a half years prior to our family. And we were already in a routine. We were in the schedule. Our children were very well behaved. And then here comes Wilson, tornado, Haitian hurricane, as we called you.
So now he's a storm. He's a tornado. He's coming to destroy, mess up, flooding, But I thought he was a leader and a great kid and good at the orphanage,
And we're like, oh, okay.
That was the Haitian hurricane.
You were the Haitian hurricane, yeah.
And then gonna have the nerve to call him the Haitian hurricane. Like that.
I think it's hard to say I unlearned anything because I learned in the process. There's no good manual. There's no good instruction book on how to do an adoption and how to bring somebody into your family who's not been a part of your family before. It's just something you have to experience and learn as you go. It's like on the job training that has to happen. And I think that was for all three of us. That was for you too. It was a culture change for you, being in a home setting and not in an orphanage with walls. It was a culture change for your siblings to have another sibling, especially your brother, to share a room. He had never shared a room before. And it was a change for us because you didn't come with the base of knowledge that our kids had, having been born into our family.
That's a huge thing. Not having that base of knowledge of already being in the family and having to come into the family and learn that.
And we could not assume that you did. And so rather than saying unlearn something, it's what did we learn? We learned how much of the process we didn't know.
I love him for saying that. The mom just thought it was going to be easy. Like, oh, you look well and buttoned up at the orphan. Again, this fairy tale, child, you probably saw him a few days. Like, probably didn't really spend any real time with him. You probably didn't, take him out for a long period of time to see what he's like outside of that orphanage, or really get down to the nitty gritty of how he's feeling at night at that orphanage, when all the lights are out and you got to sleep amongst all these strangers, and you don't really have a mother. You have people that are coming in just making sure you're comfortable, right? And the father took a realistic approach and was like, unlearn? No, we had to learn. We Talk about unlearn. This boy was a boy when we got him. He, was who he was when he came into our home. But we had to have this hands-on experience with him in order to learn him and for him to learn us and for him to learn our other son, which became his brother. It seemed like they went in it with two different expectations. The mom went into it thinking that things would just be easy from what she saw. We can all watch a movie. When we watched Coach Carter back in the day before a basketball game, we thought we was going to win against this one team, and we lost miserably, child. But the fantasy was like, yo, we just got pumped from watching Coach Carter. But the reality was we wasn't ready for that game.
Yeah, it's they probably fed her all the cliche terms. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be wonderful. You're not going to have any problems. And then, bam.
Haitian hurricane. Here he comes.
Now, they didn't really get into like some of the things that he did, but I can only imagine and think about like probably didn't get along with his new sibling, They probably were fighting all the time, arguing. I've told this many times, me and my brother, we weren't that close. Not to say that I didn't love him, but it just, it was not the sibling that I had hoped for, from a connection standpoint. Like we were just not connected like that. Like, he would do anything for me. I'm not saying that he didn't look out for me or didn't care about me. It's just we just did not connect. We clashed a lot. Like,
why do you think that's so? I mean,
uh,
there weren't biological brothers.
I don't know. I don't really know. Like, I tried to do what I thought I knew to do to try to be close to him. I wanted to be around him. I wanted to hang out with him and his friends, but he was like, no. And so over time, that built up, and I just said, I had to figure out a way to like build my own friend connection and not try to latch on to his. And so that's what I did. And so, but really that just grew us further apart because I was spending time, I was doing my own thing. He was doing his own thing. And there were periods in my life where I was working and going to school. So it wasn't like I had a lot of time to hang out either too. So when I wasn't working, I was doing homework or I was studying or I was working on labs, So it's during those times, really didn't have the internet like when I first started going to school out of high school. So everything had to be done at school. And so there was a lot of dynamics that really didn't feel like a sibling per se. But as I got older, I started to try to, bridge that gap, because I know, and that was something my mother always wanted for us to be closer. So as I started getting older, I started to try to, slowly, bring that back in, and so when you look at, I mean, I don't know how, like, but your siblings are with you. But like for me, when I got to a certain age, I was really just doing my own thing with my friends, and he was doing his own thing. We hung out every once in a while, but it wasn't like, it wasn't like that. Like I have friends that had siblings, and like they literally was everywhere together. and it's like, I was like, man, I wish I could have that. That was something I always wanted,
Mhm.
and so, um, but that's just how things are sometimes. Like you just don't connect with somebody that's in your family, and I try my best, you know, did what I could do, um, but you can't force something that's not there.
Yeah, that's true. And like I always say, people can't give you what they don't have. Uh, so they can't, people, I think it's, but I'll try the light might go out. I'm just letting y'all know now. um, but, you know, like we said earlier, we crave that. We crave the belonging or the connection. And when the connection can't happen, it does something to us, and it may not be an overall feeling, or it may not, shut us down completely. But when the connection doesn't happen, it makes us wonder, like, why? Like,
Hmm.
we were placed here for connection.
Hmm.
Why isn't the connection working? And I think at some point in everyone's adoptions journey, you probably ask yourself that question, whether it's on a very minute level or it's on a very macro level, where it's just
Hmm.
like, okay, nothing I do is working to connect. Or, we're good in this area, but it's just this one area we just don't see eye to eye, and nobody wants to talk about it. And,
Hmm.
nobody kind of wants to put their finger on it, because somebody's going to say, ouch. And when somebody says, ouch, now we got to address the ouch. And, it's like, on some level, adoptees feel that, because, excuse me, you're not going to always feel connected to your adopted family. You're even if you have the best situation imaginable, if you have the best situation imaginable, you're still going to feel the disconnect, and you're going to question it. It's only those who actually go beyond the questioning and go beyond the, what can I do to make this better, will you be able to get to the other side. But a lot of adoptees do experience that disconnect, and it's for both parties to be able um to mend that connection. But I
Hmm.
wanted to play another video by Dr. Vanessa Lapointe, two more actually.
With a mom whose child is really, really struggling. He's a little guy, he's about 6. If you ask him what's his favorite part about school, what's he gonna say? Recess. His second favorite part about school? Art. Favorite part of the day, recess, because he gets to go and be himself. Art, he gets to be himself. And he's having a tricky time at school. So what do you think they've done? They took away recess, and they took away art.
I'm just kidding.
And if you would like to rejoin the kids at recess and get going again with art, then you will do A, B, C, X, Y, Z. If you wanna, as grown-ups, make yourselves, really give yourselves a rough ride, do that. Never mind what that does to that child. Actually, probably what he needs is about 7 recesses a day. He needs to have a paper and whatever his drawing stuff is available to him, readily, and just regulate himself through that experience, express himself through that experience. So we don't want to interrupt. We want to make sure that we stay focused on play, and you will be swimming upstream. When you're feeling pressured to teach, that is your little warning sign that you need to step back into the world of play. We teach in the world of play.
So, a lot of times we talk about adoption, foster care, and parenting all wrapped up in one. And if you don't follow her, definitely follow her. Those who what's going on here? Those who struggle to open up, those who struggle to find things to do in order to connect. She calls herself the parent whisperer because she is a child psychologist and her main focus is the child and being able to focus on the child's needs. Right. I think a lot of times, especially when you get adopted, it's like, I'm giving you the basics, the basics of, a roof over your head, clothes on your back, food in your mouth, you got shoes on your feet, you're not homeless. And those are the basics, but I think that if a child had to choose between food and, a warm embrace, they would probably choose a warm embrace more than food. They would starve in order to be held. They would starve in order to connect. They would starve in order to be embraced. And so, she does a great job of saying, hey, you want to regulate a child by allowing them to be them times 3, times 2, times 4, times 5. Meaning, if your child is having behavior issues and you take the thing away that they love, 1 + 1 does equal 2, right? So, you want the behavioral issues to subside, but you take away the things that they love or the things that they're good at, and now you're wondering why your behavior issues have multiplied. So lean in to the areas where the child is able to be themselves without any recourse or without any judgment or without any feeling of should I do this or not, child is at recent. I think, I watched that video and it brought so much back to me because it really explained the feelings that I had when I went from foster care to be adopted. Because when I was in foster care, I told y'all, my generation created We Outside. I was outside, okay? And it was full of play. It was full of being able to hang out with my friends and be able to be a 7, 8-year-old and schools across the street and rollerblades and the fire hydrants being open and us, having that hood swim party with the fire hydrant open. And, we just all in the street and the music's playing and your neighbors outside, your neighbors know your name. If you're doing something crazy, your neighbor gonna tell you. I grew up in that where we are one. Like we were all just in the community and we were one, and then when I got adopted, it was like, I feel like I'm secluded from everybody. I feel like I'm not able to connect to anybody. That version of play that I had and that not even version, but the reality that I lived in is no longer. And I don't know how to recreate that world that I was in here. There is no recreating it. Now this is a new thing. So how do I, hold on to the life, that lively life that I was living and now, live this secluded and less connected life. I just, the balance there, there just really was no balance for me. And I think she explains it perfectly where it's just like, the child didn't need recess taken away. Maybe he needed 7 recesses. Maybe he needed more of what made him feel free or feel like himself and not feel like he was being punished for, or having things taken away from him when he was on punishment or timeout that actually made him more of who he was. And that really resonated with me where it was just like the play factor, there was no more of that play factor when I got adopted. And I think that huge part of my life was a huge factor in my life because I mean, I was just a kid. I was just being a kid, right? And then I was thrown into, now you're the daughter. Now you're, our child. And now and it was just like the transition just didn't go well because I didn't know how to turn that on in my new life, knowing that it wasn't a child. It was, you can't go past the stop sign. Like,
Yeah, because you can't recreate a vibe like that. Like you can't, like, it's not like when you grow up around people that, like you said, going outside, riding bikes, playing with the fire hydrant, skating, playing football, basketball, and then you go where ain't none of that going on.
it was
Like,
culture shock, child. I was like, where am I?
thought you was in a bunker somewhere.
Look, it kind of like I wrote an autobiography back in the day, and I was like, I felt like I went to jail a little bit. Like it felt like I was in a cell, block D block. Like I felt like, what happened to the life?
Yeah, that time can never be recreated. That time of era where people really cared about one another. They cared about people's kids. When you go outside, other parents will look out for you, and they know if you're supposed to be, if you ain't where you're supposed to be, they'd be like, hey, you might want to get back around the corner before you, before you get that tail whooped, So they know, they knew. And so it's that vibe that you were used to, and then it just got taken away. It was like, I know you probably felt like you were being punished because you didn't have that.
And then my behavior because of it was, bad. No, we're not going to say bad because there are not bad behaviors nor good behaviors. There are just behaviors. It was, I couldn't regulate my emotions in that environment. I couldn't, especially when now I'm expected to be your daughter and I got to call you mom and dad. And, it was just like I just got ripped away from, like, I felt like the best place on earth. And now, I'm here. And, when you go from when parents are trying to correct, because I'm sure I had behaviors about me that needed correcting, right? I'm not sitting here saying that like I was a perfect child. Like I grew up in a city, and so there were behaviors about me that needed correcting. But when the correcting is do this right or you're on punishment, that didn't
help.
That didn't help. Because like now you're secluding me. Now, I'm angry and I have to go face the wall and deal with this anger by myself and be like, oh my God, I hate them. I can't stand them. I just wish they would just send me back. Like all of that is, I'm just being honest and real. Like, that's what this is about. That is what I had to deal with alone by myself while I'm facing the wall. Or I'm writing this Bible verse over and over and over again. Like, I don't care what the Lord say about this. Who is the Lord? Like, why am I writing this over and over again? Like, now after, doing it, like the discipline kicked in, but it didn't feel, and discipline doesn't feel good. So I'm not going to say that the discipline should have felt good. But what I'm saying is, it could have came off more in a lovingly manner, knowing that I didn't know you from a can of paint. It's like me going to go take my neighbor kid and bring him into my house and be like, you better do what I say, because if you don't do what I say, you're going to be on punishment. They're going to look at me and be like, who are you?
You ain't my mama.
Right. It's just like on the movies. Like, why, who are you to be punishing me the way that you're punishing me? And again, we weren't babies. That third, I was going into fourth grade. So the innocence of the third grade wore off. Reality set in. I'm serious. I think that after third grade, I wanted to be a third grade teacher. That's why I went into teaching. My first job was at a school, after school program, and I love the third grade. Like it's just like the innocence and the kindness and the love. They just come up to you and give you a hug. Fourth grade, they be like, you're like, was that just the girl from third grade, innocent little Sally? So that's what I wanted to be. And it was just like I was in fourth grade, like I was 9, so it didn't translate. The innocence of the third grade had worn off, and the reality just set in. And it really didn't, when you want to question the closeness, you got to also question the actions of how we were corrected and how the behaviors were addressed, because they were addressed as if I was a bad kid, and I didn't know how to adapt to my new environment. And again, my mom and dad were both working, so my mom is working at night. I don't remember, I'm sure my dad probably never took off, but I'm sure my mom had to have, how they have maternity leave. I'm sure they have to have that for adopted kids, where it's just like some businesses help you adopt. They have that, adoption assistance. And so, I'm sure there had to be a time period where she probably stayed home for a little bit, but then she went back to work, and can you imagine, like, I'm a mom, I'm a biological mom, so I know the frustrations of when I'm tired and things of that nature. But could you imagine being frustrated and tired and dealing with a 9-year-old, not even not a baby, but a 9-year-old, somebody that can talk back to you and, give you the looks and roll their eyes and suck their teeth and,
Was you doing all that?
yeah, at some point. Yeah. I'm being honest. Like, I didn't want to be where I was. Like, that's the truth. Like, I just didn't want to be there, because I didn't feel the need to be there. But there was a need for me to be there because I couldn't stay in foster care. But as a child, you don't know that forever is not a thing, right? And when you're a child, forever is a thing for you. Like, this is forever for me. And then when that reality gets thrown in your face, or when you are actually living that reality, your blinders come off. The shades, just literally were just ripped from my eyes, and I had to see things in reality and not in a fantasy, or a kid just being a kid. Is like, I grew up when I got adopted. It was like I'm sitting back and I'm observing and I'm being quiet. I wasn't that lively kid that I was when I before I got adopted. I became very reserved. I became very observant. And I think that those aren't things that adoptive parents expect, because they have their own rose-colored glasses on of what they expect for their children to be. And again, this is an image thing as well. Some people do it for the image. Like, okay, we've been telling people we've been wanting kids, we can't have kids, and we're gonna get these kids, and then you get the kids, and it's not really about the kids. It's about how everybody views you now. Now you're parents. You're not just Mr. and Mrs. Now you're the parents of. And when you adopt children, you gotta be the student of those children. And parents don't see it that way because they are older and they are in the driver's seat. But you do have to be students of the children that you adopt. You just do. There's no way around it.
Yeah, like that guy said, it's definitely a hands-on job, 24/7. Like, it ain't, there's no two ways about it. Like I said earlier, I would just sit. I mean, even when I got older, like, me and my mom, we would just go out, go shopping, and we go, to dinner or something. We just sit and talk. Like, just, you know, sometimes, especially when you get older, um, sometimes your parents, they just want somebody to talk to. Like, they don't really want, like, and you don't really have to ask for anything. Like, I'm not saying you got to take them out. I'm just saying that go sit outside, or go, in the summer, when you barbecuing, just sit around and talk, and like you said, be present, make an effort, because that goes. You don't think it goes a long way, but it does. Like, when like I used to So I would make an effort because I've been living out of state since 2017. So I would make an effort to make sure I went back to go spend time with my mom, because um I didn't want, that long of a time to go by. Seen her. So I at least would try to make it back home at least twice a year. Because I lived in New Orleans. Then I moved here. So she was so happy when I left New Orleans.
Really?
Yeah, because of hurricanes, I didn't really want to be there either. But it was for more money, so I was like, all right, I'll stay here for a little bit, but I can't see this being home.
Mhm.
So yeah, the effort goes a long way, especially when you're coming up as a kid. Like I said, I used to watch my dad do everything. I used to watch him shave. I was like, I can't wait till I can start shaving. I started shaving probably way too early. That's why I got full beard now.
Yeah. You mirror, like that one video said, you mirror um your parents at a certain stage and age in your
Hmm.
life. That just becomes evident. And while you mirror their positive aspects, you also mirror their negative aspects.
Hmm.
you know um I noticed that I mirror positive and negative aspects from my family. And it's not because I, I it's just what's being shown to me, so I'm doing the same thing, kind of, um,
Hmm.
type of thing. Um, but we want to be able to, when we see those negative aspects of what's being mirrored, we have to sit and ask ourselves why. Why are these the actions and the behaviors that's being mirrored back? And am I seeing it as a mirror, or am I seeing that as just that's how you are, as well? Because I think a lot of times when things go unaddressed, you can get into a cycle of stagnancy, and you're just stagnant or stuck. And one person can be looking at the other person saying, oh, you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't do this, when they're really mirroring each other and they're not
Hmm.
realizing it. When you're stuck, you're really mirroring each other, just on different ends of the spectrum.
Hmm.
All right, I'm gonna play this last video and then we're gonna get up out of here. We'll be back live tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern for the men's forum. But before we go, I want to leave this reminder, what to expect when adopting. Again, expect not to have any of the answers. However, you are involved in an open book test, meaning there has to be hands-on experience. When you're adopting, expect nothing. Every idea and dream that you had for this child, get out of your brain, because you are not going to know what truly lives inside of this child until you start to live inside of this child. And that nothing, no paperwork, no, one time experience or even multiple experiences. My pastor always says you don't know a person until you really seen him in all 4 seasons. It is, yeah, we could have had an overnight stay. Yeah, you could have took me out to the park. Yeah, you could have, but just like the other mother was like, okay, you were nice in the orphanage, and you were a leader in the orphanage, and you were great in the orphanage. And then you take that person out of the orphanage, out of a place where it's a communal environment, and you put them in a secluded, private environment, and they're different. Their emotions come out different. But I want to leave everyone with this reminder. And of course, again, this is Dr. Vanessa Lapointe, who is given this explanation.
A photo of one of my boys. And I want you to notice, first off, the positioning of my arm. They're these giant boys, but my arm's always on top. Why? It's the I'm in charge of this connection kind of energy. I don't make my children be in charge of the connection that they have with me. Even at 18 and 21 years of age, I don't make them be in charge of the connection that they have with me. That's not the way it's meant to work for young children. Adults provide the connection. Adults take care of the connection. If the connection's getting a little bit weak or a little bit ruptured or something's happened, adults make it be okay, not children. So adults provide it, kids seek it. If that continues to play out, you will feel like a safe, solid kind of grown-up for that kid, so they will lean in. Imagine this is you. You're warm and you're squishy and you're awesome. They're like, yes, please, to this connection. When you have that connection established and you're like, okay, come this way, they're like, cool. I mean, they might have a little bit of a reaction or whatever, but internally, they're willing to do your bidding. They're willing to take your lead. They will lean in. Now, what happens if you're not safe and solid because you're a little crotchety? Or you're not safe and solid because you're like amoebic and you have like no ability to be in charge of children? What will happen is the child's like, whoa, that's not working. The only reason that a human child would not lean in is if the lean in wasn't safe. And is that for a 7-year-old child to fix? Hell no. That is a grown-up thing.
Amen. Because a kid has no business trying to fix something that is the responsibility of an adult.
Yeah, especially when the adult is taking on that responsibility, right? The kid didn't ask for it. And some may say, well, that's ungrateful, and that you're looking at it totally wrong. And it's like, no, you're looking at it totally wrong. You just send your kids to a stranger's house and have the kid be raised by them. You would, in your mind, hope that the adult who took on that responsibility is doing their damn bestest to steward that relationship in a healthy manner. And stewarding the relationship in a healthy manner means I see you for you, right? It's into me see. Are you looking into this to see who I can be and to see who I truly am, or to see what you can gain out of it, or to see how you'll look from adopting or taking in these poor dear children? That to me, that is what it boils down to. Are you willing to see children for who they truly are? Or, are you getting something out of this? Is this a tax break for you? Oh, you got 2, now you get double the money. Like, it's like, what are you really getting out of this? And, again, I always say that the true measure of parenting is when your children want to come see you when you don't ask them to. When they just want to come see you, when they just want that connection, or like you said, when you just want to be around them and have a conversation. That's the true measure of your parenting. And no matter how good of a job that you think that you did, your children will reflect that. Your children, that will come out of your child naturally. The wanting and the desiring to be around parents who made them feel safe, who saw them wholeheartedly for who they were and didn't try to impress who they wanted them to be on their children. Because
I think that's what I miss the most.
Yeah.
It's really talking to my mom. Like every day she would, she knew I worked from home. So every day on my lunch break, she would call me. She's like, oh, what are you having for lunch today? Or you're ordering something, or you're cooking something, just,
common conversation.
Yeah, just gibberish conversation, right? Like just checking to see how I was doing. And then, go from that to go to nothing. It was devastating at first. I ain't gonna lie. Like, if we're gonna talk about some real stuff, that was devastating.
Yeah. I've never experienced that, but my sister has, having to lose our biological mother, then lose her adoptive father, then lose her adoptive mother, to now having no parents whatsoever and feeling like she's all alone. And she's in Maryland too, as a matter of fact. And I don't know that experience, and I know that her and her adopted mom, they had like a unique relationship. They would talk all the time, but it would be more so arguing back and forth and, getting on each other's nerves. And I'm like, I don't know if I could have that type of relationship, but that was your unique thing. But, when they're gone, she misses it and she feels alone, and it almost feels like you're an orphan, or you are, have those feelings of abandonment all over again when, life took them away, and not necessarily, um, circumstances that we were initially in. And so, I don't know what that feels like, but I think that we should cover that, because I think that there are a lot of people who experience that. That's why it's so it that I think that's why it also hurts adoptees when they find out later in life that they're adopted, because they also lose out on the chance to reunite with the family, with their biological family. Because once you wait till you get up in years, you run the chance of your biological family not being alive. You run the chance of your biological family being set in the story that they have told themselves and that they have told others. And so when you come around, it's like, who are you? You know, which you know how that goes. They're reluctant to open up, because a story has been told for so long and everybody believes that story. And so, it adoption is a lifelong journey, because now, there you don't have parents to turn to, or you don't have those who chose that responsibility to continue on this journey with you. And that's a grief all in itself, right? Having to grieve your biological parents and then having to grieve your adoptive parents. It's like, when do we stop grieving? When there's breaks, and there's, and some people grieve, people that are still living that just aren't in their life, or there has been a disconnect from that person. And so when we talk about what to expect when adopting, again, I'll say, expect that you do not have the answers until you have done the work of seeking out child psychologists and asking those questions, and doing what they do in AA. Hi, my name is Precious and I have a problem. Right? Like,
I need some help.
it is okay. It's okay to admit that you have a problem. It's a growing pain. Growing pain. Just like when you go into the gym, them hamstrings are just aching. It's only because you're doing the exercise correctly. I mean, you could be doing it wrong and they still keep hurting. But look, you'll figure it out, right? If you want to look how you want to look. And so again, we're human beings, not human doings, and it's not always about you doing something to get the love of someone, but it's about you being a higher version of yourself. It's okay to kind of skate through this world, but I'm always fearful, when it's my turn to talk to God, right? And he'd be like, all right now, so what did you do with what I gave you? That, like, I always have that in my mind. Like, what did you do with what I gave you? And what I gave you, could be anything. It could be my gifts. It could be my pain. It could be my triumphs. Like, what did you actually do with it? How did it make you become a better person? Did it make you become a bad person? Did you help others? It's all a part of me being in this human being experience, and being allows us to do right. But if we're not going to work on the being, how did we ever expect to do anything? So I always think, when I'm talking to God and we come to that time when he calls me up to the heavens, and he's like, well, what did you do with what I gave you? I want to say, I bounced back. I didn't allow it to keep me down. I helped others. I helped others have a voice. things like that. I want to, because he's our heavenly Father, and I do want to make him proud. And that's all we want to do as adopted children, is make our families proud, right? We want to belong. We want to connect, because we stuck here anyway. We might as well, like, we might as well get to a level and a space of maturity where we're able to say, you know what, we don't necessarily agree, but we're gonna work through that. We're gonna do that. And I think any family wants to be on those terms with their family. But with adoption, it's just a little bit different, because you're dealing with a lot of variables that you didn't necessarily start with. You don't know these birth family. You don't know the characteristics and the behavior that's coming with that child. You may have written analysis and observations on the child, but until you live the experience with the child, you don't know nothing. You don't know nothing.
It's just like them quarterbacks that watch all that tape, but then when they go out on that field and they have to put in that work, it's a different story.
A different story. I told you, we watched Coach Carter. We was pumped. Like, dang, how did you beat that bad? And we were so inspired. Well, that is all I have for tonight. I hope those who are watching were able to gain a thing or two. Definitely share the video. It's not too late. It won't even be too late when we end the video. You can share this at any time. It will be posted. If you missed the live video, you can also be part of the replay crew. Okay, let me know in the comments if you're watching this on the replay. All right. Any closing words, Leon, before we get up out of here?
No, I enjoyed the conversation as usual. We got exclusive next week.
Yes.
My sister will be joining us to have a conversation.
I'm looking forward to this. Look, I'm happy. I'm the host, and I'm like.
So if you want to see a real conversation with two siblings, come back for the next week.
Come on back. Bring your popcorn. Okay. I would just look, you gonna be the host next week. I may have a question here or there, but I'm just gonna be a fly on the wall, because this is a real life experience for you. You are going through this real time, and those who are watching and those who get the opportunity to see us do what we do and actually witness this, it's a blessing. I had my biological brother come on the show when before I took a break from social media. He came on the men's panel, and he talked about how he didn't really have a strong relationship with our biological father. Mm-hmm. So I had to turn the camera off and drop a couple tears, okay? Because certain things, you don't see them happening until they happen. Like, you just, and then other people are experiencing it real time with you. It's like, oh my gosh, like, this is amazing. And we're going to be taking it moment by moment. We're not going to expect too much in the future. We're not going to expect, these timely responses. We're going to take it as God gives it. And this is a process, man. Like we were talking before coming on to on live, how you reach out to people and they see your messages and they don't respond. And I always say everything that has ever happened within my adoption happened in God's time, and it did not happen when I wanted it to. Because if it happened when I wanted it to, I probably wouldn't have been prepared for it. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have been. So I think that everything that you have gone through, and your sister as well, is going to prepare you guys for this conversation for next week. So I'm here. I'm here for it too, girl. Like we just look, we just here for the ride. We here for the ride. Okay? So definitely we'll talk behind the scenes in preparation for that show. But thank you guys so much for being here. I always forget, because I just don't even think about, the support end of it. However, if you like to support the platform, definitely you can hit the Cash App Michelle 1500. Always appreciate it. Gas prices is high, child. Give me a gallon or two. So now, like, stop. If you find it in your heart to support the platform. But I really do this from the kindness of my heart. I have no problem coming on here and having these conversations, because I wish I would have been a part of a community like this when I needed it, when I didn't know where to turn, or before. I'm like, okay, like, is it therapy? All right, let's go to therapy then. I really wish that this was a community that I could have been a part of sooner. But sometimes they say we make, and we are the people that we wish that we had when we were younger. And I'm here for it. I'm here for it. So you guys definitely join us next week at 9 p.m. Eastern. But before then, definitely join us tomorrow if you'd like to see Men's Forum, where we have real life topics, conversations. We don't want to point the fingers, but we do want to point out behaviors and how we can change them and kind of redirect the ship and going in the right direction. But I appreciate you guys. Leon, I appreciate you. You don't have to, but you do. And I do appreciate you. So thank you. We're going to get up out of here. You guys have a great evening. Happy Wednesday.
Take care, guys.